Welcome to Downwind Diaries, episode 11, and off we go with South African Surski for our next edition of this long-form content that we're putting together to share our passion for Surski paddling. Welcome to my partner in crime, Greg Vogt. Greg, great to have you on in a new format.
Yeah.
Online.
Different, not sitting on the ocean and feeling the waves behind us. But the last time we were sitting, we introed the Pete Marlin race. And soon after that, we were in our vehicles. Some of us lucky people were flying, and those unlucky people had to pull trailers to the race. And you gave it stick. You smashed the singles, and then you got a young one to get in the back with you and push you through the doubles. How did you find your race?
So Pete Marlin for me is just so much fun. The community that comes together for that race is just absolutely amazing. And yeah, just being involved with such cool people, the race organizers, Charles and team from Border Canoe Club do such a great job at that event. It's kind of my favorite on the calendar. And I claim the title of doing the most amount of Pete Marlins for any non-East Londoner. I have a soft spot for that beautiful coastline coming around Yellows over the race. Is around that point, and just seeing that awesome beach and everything that goes with that specific race is just unreal. It's one of the ones that I just look forward to every year. I never miss it. Yeah, unfortunately, I wasn't well after the week after Worlds. I think the highs of adrenaline after such a huge event kind of dropped that week, and I really didn't have a good singles race. To be honest, I really battled. Managed to lift it for the Sunday after a good night's sleep, and yes, imported some power for the doubles with Luke Leroux from Cape Town. He's made a comeback from injury the last couple of months, and great to see him paddling really nicely and pushed us down the course, which was cool. Yeah, Craig, how was your race?
I loved it. Had a really cool race with my world champ in our age group partner, Michelle Gregory, and we enjoyed ourselves. We enjoyed ourselves so much. We passed the where we should have turned left, and we stole a few extra 100 meters. But then I heard that we were in good company, because over the past 2 years, I believe Kira did the same. But that said, you touched on to something interesting. I want to just make a huge shout out to Charles and his entire crew for what they run that race seamlessly. So congratulations as a competitor. It's so awesome. The support you give us to get down there and to attend is amazing. And SASS was, we were privileged to bring some newbies that we've been coaching from our academy, and they did their first race. So that was really nice. And it was so awesome to see newcomers to the sport participating in that event and enjoying it. So whilst we on these Downwind Diaries, we talk about the top paddlers, we mustn't forget that there's a huge incumbent group of people getting into it, and they look up to the fast racing snakes as their inspiration. But you mentioned something, Barry. You said the race straight after Worlds, and I was interested to hear what your view was, because the ladies, the senior race was tight. When Kira passed you, you screamed a few words of encouragement to her. Yes, you were checked, but we won't mention anything. Just don't say a word about that. But there was 9 seconds off DMAC, and they shared the win, a bit of an alternative there.
Yeah, I think just a little bit on conditions in the course. So obviously quite a bit different to Worlds, and that was much shorter. Worlds was a proper endurance event at 34 Ks. This is only 21 and a half, 22 Ks, probably a full hour distance of racing between the two. And yeah, just chatting to the girls afterwards. I think Kira, rightfully so, just didn't have the best day, I don't think. And that's how close this racing really is. The top end of the Surski paddling fraternity will race probably 8 or 9 times in the last 10 weeks or 11 weeks of the year. Someone like Kira will race Worlds, then on to Pete Marlin. Since that, she's gone to do Hong Kong Dragon Run. They are currently film this in Reunion. From there, they go to the doctor, and the doctor's 4 races. There's 3 races in Reunion. So the relative how much they race is quite scary. DMAC wasn't far off at Worlds. He was pretty close, only less than a minute. Over 34 Ks is pretty close. And yeah, it came down to the wire. And DMAC got the better of Kira on this one. And I'm sure over the next couple of weeks, as they race each other again at the West Australian sort of paddling festival around the doctor and Sean Partners week, they're going to have some amazing battles. And it's so cool to see that there isn't just one standout girl. Let me tell you, the top 5 is going to be tough. We've got some amazing young paddlers coming through the system. Jade Wilson's been doing some unbelievable sort of little comeback from she was a mention after Worlds, didn't have the greatest Worlds, and then had a really good Pete Marlin back in the mix. So yeah, I think the racing's close. Everyone gave it a stick, and obviously the racing a bit shorter. DMAC got one over Kira, but there's lots of racing still to come the rest of the year.
Talking about the conditions, I wanted to ask you, Andy Burkett, traditionally a K1 river racer and marathon racer, pipped the men and took some interesting scalps. So my question to you revolves around the conditions, and did they favor the technicality? How did that play a role in both the men's and the women's win?
So just to explain the conditions were light. There were very, very little bumps on there. And what you had to work for were really hard. A little bit of background about Andy. He has been living in East London, and that is now his hometown. He's been paddling a lot of surski paddling over the last couple of years. And just chatting to him, he just hasn't put together a race plan or have a result in a surski that has made sense yet. Not without effort. I think he's been trying for a while to get into the ski. He's had a couple of really good results in the double with a more experienced paddler now and again. He's won a freedom paddle in Cape Town amongst a couple of other top-end events in the country. So he's not a slouch when it comes to surski paddling. And yes, he's got a couple of world marathon titles under his belt as well. Yes, the conditions certainly would have favored Andy, not because of his flatwater background, but just because of the type of paddler mentally and physically he is. He's a big, powerful guy. He's going to be able to use that power in catching the smaller bumps that were on offer and probably just grinding out the result. Those sorts of conditions are often like favor certain guys' techniques, racing mindsets, and not necessarily just the physicality of it, but just how hard you are actually willing to hurt yourself. One mention comes to mind is Nick Naughton. Nicky was the defending champion from the year before at the Pete Marlin, and so when the races get tough, he really, really does show how quality or what a quality paddler he is. Not because he's necessarily the fastest all the time, but he just can hurt himself into that pain cave harder than anyone else. And I think the background of marathon racing, you really do have to get back in the mix, get dropped from a bunch. You got to stay mentally strong the whole time, and it certainly showed in his performance. I'm super stoked for him. I think he's been paddling ski for quite a while, and he's a proper racing snake. I've got to be honest, I'm not surprised that he's done well. I'm surprised that it's taken him this long to get a win, because he really is a quality athlete, which is really cool. I'm stoked for him. One of the things that I found quite interesting, obviously, after attending so many Pete Marlins, is a lot of the international field that did come out to the race, obviously that stayed on from Worlds, gave you the Pete Marlin feel a little bit different this year. Very enjoyable. Yeah, that international flavor really gave the race a little bit of character, which I loved. I really love the local people, and to show off our country, that region of the country, and sort of like one of our stalwart races to a lot of our international guests was amazing. So well done to Charles and your team for hosting them. And I certainly think there'll be more people out in South Africa in years to come at races like the Pete Marlin, now that many people have been exposed to it. There were 22 countries represented at the Pete Marlin, which is an amazing feat. We saw people from all over the place. all over the world come to take part. Obviously, after Worlds, stay on and experience what South Africa has to offer, which is, for me, really cool. And yeah, that international vibe was amazing.
It was lovely. It was really, really enjoyable. I found it special to meet the guys, some of them in the business. We had some interesting conversations with guys from Australia and different parts of the world. A lot of our clients came out and raced. It was lovely to, we have enjoyed their company in Mauritius, and hosting them here was a lot of fun. And again, congrats to Charles and his team. They didn't, they just created magic. My question, when we first bumped into each other many, many years ago, you were a lighty then, racing hard, top 5, winning on the circuit. I managed to secure a level 1 World Series race at Plettenberg Bay. And back then they had this World Series campaign. What is the setup nowadays? And how did that change? Because that was really encouraging, and it was, it was great for surf ski. It seemed to fall away, and what can we do to bring back that excitement? Because one thing I've noticed is a flurry of interest for incumbent people coming into the game and wanting to do surf ski. So, we're starting this, people have woken up to the amazing sport. And is it something that we should revisit? Explain that to me.
So all of those races that you're talking about in that World Series was quite privatized. The structure in the sport since then, with ICF getting involved in the sport, and specifically this Surf Ski World Champs was an ICF Surf Ski World Champs in Durban a couple of weeks ago. The ICF have in their structures a couple of levels of races. There are national level races, World Cup level races, and then World Champs. They have a World Cup series that travels the world every year. And slowly but surely, they are building the World Cup series in the background of obviously your annual World Championships. I know they have announced the 2026 World Cups already for the ICF races, which include Brazil, which is a really nice, exciting. They put on a great show at the Molacabra reunion, which is currently being run at the moment. It also is a World Cup this year and will again be next year. And then obviously the Surf Ski World Champs next year will be in Spain with the Spanish Federation in the Med, which is also an existing race that's been going for a long time. They're using the course that is normally run as part of the Euro Challenge. It's a proven track record course, etc. So in the background, RCF and their structures do have a World Cup Series level event, and then obviously the World Champs level events. There is rumors in the mix that a World Series can be resurrected. I'm not sure at what stage that will be. Obviously, that's outside of the parameters of our official sporting bodies with the RCF. A lot of the guys in those days when we had those sort of World Series events was trying to give credibility to a sort of like non-singular world champs. So the idea was to have a whole lot of events around the world. You got a point system, and to crown a more rounded world champion rather than just a one-off race, which is an interesting concept. I just love the idea that races like Brazil and Reunion and Tahiti are the following year will be the World Champs 2027. I think they have a World Cup next year. Some really cool places where surf ski paddling culture is really dynamic. I think the downwind culture, this is a Downwind Diaries story. And let me tell you, the wind pumps in Brazil at that Molacabra, the videos are amazing. I wish that we could possibly get out there in years to come. I can't wait. I personally have had the opportunity to go to Tahiti a couple of times. Tahiti is the most amazing paddling venue. From a culture perspective, their people have an island culture that revolves around the ocean. The most amazing people. They had a couple of their guys come out to the Surf Ski World Champs this year.
It was amazing.
And really interesting for them, they've actually, the guy that was 10th at the race, Hector Heno, the European surf ski champion in years gone by, and sort of under 23 up-and-coming guys, actually moved to Tahiti and coaching their local paddlers leading up to the 2027 Worlds, which is super cool that it isn't just happening at an elite level. They obviously, the Tahitian Federation is focusing on the grassroots level as well, which is pretty exciting. I don't know who will stick their hand up next to run a World Series. Let's wait and see.
Don't you think that the Pete Marlin just lends itself to that? I mean, it's almost perfect. The distance, it's a constant downwind. Your degree of success is high.
I can't say enough good things about the Pete Marlin. The distance, the structure, and I think for a lot of the South Africans, there's also a truly South African experience coming to race a double day. Most of the places around the world, very rarely will find enough doubles to race doubles. And the doubles race, and maybe we can talk about that next, was super exciting with Matt Fenn and Andy doubling up and getting a second win for the weekend with Matt. In the ladies, Kira jumping in with Jade. They paddle consistently together, and they won the ladies. But that doubles racing is super fun. Like, I love racing doubles. Doubles is epic. And I'm glad that a lot of the internationals that came to Pete Marlin get to experience some of that doubles culture from South Africa. I highly doubt that we will see that in races around the world just because they don't have enough doubles. One of the unique scenarios with world champs in 2026 is the Spanish, because a lot of their marathon background of paddling K2s actually really like doubles paddling, and their clubs have doubles. So I believe that they probably will be the second biggest doubles paddling nation out there. So we probably will expect some doubles racing at the Worlds in 2026. But for a lot of other people that came to South Africa for the Pirates and Mshonga Pirates, the Worlds, or Pete Marlin, they would have been exposed to that South African paddling culture with doubles, which is great.
So just the last little bit on the South African context before, because I know you've had some interesting discussions with some special people, but our good friend Billy Harker is putting a massive contingent of South Africans together to go over to Spain. And judging from the WhatsApp group, there's a lot of people putting up their hands. And for many of those that don't know, you would know Funky Pants. So Billy Harker is the Funky Pants man and his good wife, and they're putting together a lovely package for South Africans to go over. So that's going to be exciting. We might have another strong contingent like previously done. And I'm excited. I've certainly put up my hand, and I'm aiming to go over.
So obviously, Greg, you and I, from our SASS perspective and our business, we ran an amazing little package for the guys leading into this year's World Champs in Durban. And I 100% believe that we'll have a package for Spain too. Watch the space. I've definitely have my feelers out on a lot of the local logistics, and we're busy setting up a lot of that information in the background. Yes, Billy's trying to rally the troops. Billy knows how to organize a party. And a tour, that's for sure. So if you're a social paddler that wants to just experience Spain, Billy's group is going to be a hell of a lot of fun. But yeah, we're looking forward to hosting a couple guys at Worlds next year as well in Spain. I'm looking forward to that, as well as some of the other races we've got coming on the calendar in the months to come. So a little bit about, let's off onto the next topic after Pete Marlin. The South African paddling scene kicks off now. Nothing changes for us. We pretty much race year round. The Cape turns on. We have more of a paddling calendar in the summer, in the winter, in Durban, where the Cape paddlers sort of more activate in the winter. We've got the PE to London and the Cape Point coming in the next couple of weeks, with in early December and middle December. We've also had a very unique event happen in Durban called
that 100 miler was fantastic. Barry, what do you think of those splits that were posted in the 100 miler? I mean, that is insane.
So you and I are locals to Durban, and just to explain, there's another port town 160 kilometers north of Durban called Richards Bay, and it's a perfect. It's actually called the Harbour 100 miler. You paddle out of a port, it's super safe, and they take a direct line across pretty far out to sea towards Durban, into an ocean current. The ocean current kind of sits 5 or 6 k's out to sea, and the guys are anywhere between 10 and 20 kilometers out to sea at some points. It's pretty extreme, to say the least. And the sheer capacity of understanding and getting your head around 160 kilometers in the ocean of, I think the winning time, 10 hours, 40 some change minutes. Most guys doing well over 11 hours, and the back markers doing 15 hours at sea. It's quite something. I had the privilege of jumping on a jet ski last year for the first event that they ran with just a handful of guys, and it's grown a little bit. There's more guys on the start line this year, which is absolutely crazy. To watch the guys paddle last year was just wild to see the athleticism of someone that can tap out those sorts of kilometers after 10 hours. It's ridiculous.
No, it was insane. And he was doing splits of 17, 17.8. I think he even touched on to 1 or 2 18-kilometer-an-hour splits. It's just as you said, as an athlete, and it was lovely to have Zach Praiser come up from Cape Town to compete. And the field was a little bit bigger this year, and a few doubles that we saw for the first time. So it looks like it's not an event, but it is an event. It's not an official race. You pretty much look after yourself. There is one safety boat out there, but I think you commit to looking after yourself. But I'm very, very interested to see what this is going to grow into down the line, and when will the first international come and try and get onto that leaderboard.
So just a little bit more specific to what you were saying there, the race was won by Bevan Manson. Bevan is the current 24-hour paddling record holder and has put his name up in many circles as one of the best endurance paddling names out there. I personally watched him tap out the last sort of 20, 30 Ks of the event last year in an amazing performance, and unfortunately couldn't be on the water this year, but yeah, just watching those little, we call them the dot watchers of the trackers that the guys have got with them, and seeing him come through for a win is actually, to me, not surprising. He's a good friend. We've paddled a lot of doubles together, and I've had a couple of chats to him post-race in what it's like to spend 11 hours at sea completely on your own, and the freedom and the liberation of kind of getting out there. So well done to Bev for taking that win. Second place, I've got to mention something. We've got a crazy man in our paddling fraternity here in Durban, Brett Hadieris. It's probably the fittest we've ever seen him over the years. He came in second. To some of the locals, not surprising, because he is a hell of a good downwind paddler, and they had some cranking runs on the day. But just the time difference, but he was super close to Bev. He was within 20 minutes over 11-hour paddle to one of the best endurance paddlers in the world. It really is something special. And then obviously third across the line was Zach, who'd come up from Cape Town.
He was leading for a while. And then Bev took over. I'm looking down here. I've gone on to Downwind drag race, and I was just looking at some of Bev's numbers. 330s at kilometer 144. To do a 330 is insane. 322 at 126 kilometers at 322. I mean, that's just next level. 10 hours 43 was the winning.
So just little things like we as our SASS Academy have obviously mentored a lot of paddlers into the sport, and one specific guy I've got to give a shout out to is John Probler. John took up the sport within 2 years ago, comes from a triathlon background, so pretty sporty, but was new to the paddling scene, and just the concept of downwind paddling for him just bit. He did a couple of sessions with us, a couple of coaching sessions. I managed to do a couple of downwinds and a double with him and kind of mentor him a little bit. And to see him do, within 2 years of starting paddling, the 100-miler and the double.
100-miler, yeah. He did it with his paddling pal, Vim. What was really interesting is the Vim traditionally, when they race on the rivers, is in front. And, you know that John spins a little bit. So you sort of introduced John to downwind, and you mentored him nicely and coached him nicely there. And then Vim came to me one day and said, listen, this double is just not working. So went and I just fine-tuned them a little bit, and it ended up that Vim was in the back, taught him a few tricks on how to adjust his stroke to fit with John's, and they had a cracker. They really, really had a cracker. They did exceptionally well. But they both have an amazing pedigree.
So just for me, it's actually the passion they bring to it. So for example, Zach, he just fits it into the vibe of that race because he brings such a positive energy to the mix. And the same with John, the same with them. They're just weekend warrior legend humans. Nice guys to be around.
Zach did 11 hours, 6 minutes.
But they just bring such positive vibes to our sport and our communities.
Beautiful.
And that's the focus of Downwind Diaries for the next couple of weeks. We kind of obviously focused the first 10 episodes on Worlds and everything that happened around that time. And the next couple of weeks, we're going to be focusing more on the personalities in our sport and some of the obviously races coming forwards. We already started filming the next couple of episodes. So we're going to be having Zach as one of those positive energy people.
Oh, that's awesome. What a character.
Downwind Diaries, as well as a couple of others, which is going to be exciting. But yeah, big up to John and Vin for bringing such a cool attitude. And obviously the first double to finish 100 miler as well, which is pretty epic.
Yeah, that's a great. Yeah. Barry, before we move on to the interesting people you've been speaking to and everything, I'd just like to give a great shout out to those going to be racing going forward into the Doctor. So to our team from South Africa and all the other people racing, to Kira, Jade, and our top boys, good luck. Go and smash it. Enjoy it. We're going to watch with interest. And yeah, I'm so excited to hear what conversations you've been having.
Yeah, so obviously there's been a lot of international races kicking into this last quarter. Last weekend was the Hong Kong Dragon Run, which has been on the calendar for 20 plus years. It's a hell of a cool race that I've managed to do twice in my time of traveling, run by some great people. And we've obviously hosted a number of the Hong Kong paddlers, one in our Mauritius tours, as well as in our Durban hospitality group. We had some of our mix of paddlers do really well in the race, which is quite cool. Yeah, great to watch the results of that. An old friend of mine, Sean Austin, who actually coached with me in Durban many years ago, ended up living in Hong Kong for a while and ran a little paddling school there, is now living in Australia, and came back to the race to get a 5th overall. Great to see Sean back in the mix. Corey Hill, got to give it to him, world champion, goes back to Hong Kong and gets another win. Yeah, well done to Corey. And then
nice one for Kira as well. But a nice one was to see Winnie. I'm so proud. I'm looking at her results here, and she did very well. So well done to her. You know, she's attended the Mauritius tours, and I think she's done 3 Mauritius tours. And each year, her growth, the development in that lady has been amazing. So well done to you on your influence there. That's really incredible.
You know, Winnie's just grown in confidence every year. I think through our advice, she kept on quite a stable boat for quite a while. I know that she raced, has upgraded the boat in the last.
She raced a Spark.
Yeah, she raced a Spark. Great, and so yeah, great, gaining confidence daily. It's been a great period of progression for her for quite a long time. She doesn't necessarily get to race a lot of the international girls much. So yeah, when she does, it gives her nice benchmarks. And to see incrementally every year how much closer she gets to the top of the elite ladies field is quite exciting. Her consistency over her downwinds is getting a lot better. And her consistent splits are just in another league compared to what she was 2.5 years ago, which is quite exciting. Yeah, but obviously one of the nice exciting ones is the growth of the reunion race, and I want to call that a semi-home race for a lot of South Africans because it's quite a short flight. It's in the Indian Ocean, quite close to South Africa, obviously very close to Mauritius where we run our tours. Has very similar conditions that we have in Mauritius, so a lot of groundswell, a lot of east to west trade winds that blow down the south of the island, And the local union in Reunion have done such an amazing job, specifically with the youth programs and getting people into the sport on the island. It's one of the things that they can be very proud of. Just this morning, I was watching some of the video footage that they put out of the young juniors race. So from us, geez, we've got some plans here in South Africa in the next couple of months to launch some junior paddling programs. We've already started within the academy, and there's an event announcement coming soon around the schools front. But yeah, just so cool to see kids getting involved in the sport, youngsters paddling. A lot of the vibe across the board in a lot of communities around the world, paddlers are male dominated, 35 to 65. And to change that demographic is not easy. It takes a lot of effort, a lot of time, and a lot of backing from a lot of people. So well done to the Reunion guys for putting such an amazing program together. The mixed doubles race has already happened, which was won by Matt Fenn and Rosie Edwards. And yeah, the singles race hasn't happened yet. It's coming this weekend. It might have happened by the time this video gets published, but we're looking forward to seeing a great hit out there in Reunion before we head into the West Australian sort of paddling week with the Shaw & Partners race week and the doctor. So yeah, so there's just so much racing around the world. Looking forward to seeing some of those results and chatting to the paddlers involved over the next couple of months as the Downwind Diaries progresses.
Been awesome chat, and I'm excited to listen to the interviews that you've already held. Very, very exciting.
So that's it for episode 11 of Downwind Diaries. We'll be catching up with you in the next couple of weeks with a whole lot more content, and we'll see you soon. To the next one.
Cool beans.